So welcome back to another edition of this Wellness Warrior podcast, sponsored by breastcancerconqueror.com. I'm Dr. V, founder of breastcancerconqueror.com and the 7 Essential System. Today, I am so excited to have the author of this amazing book called Winning the War on Cancer, written by Sylvie Beljanski. So Sylvie is an attorney by profession, but little did she know that her life would take a strange twist, and she would end up dedicating her life to support her father's legacy. I love this quote from your father where he said, "When we have the power to help, we have the duty in doing so." And so, Sylvie, when I read your book, there's a lot of good scientific information in there. But what really touched my heart about your book was that it was such a real story. And we don't often hear those real stories behind the growth of evidence-based natural medicine. And so let's just start from the beginning. I know you mentioned in your book that you didn't really feel close to your parents because you didn't understand what they were doing. So tell us a little bit about your childhood and what it was like to be the daughter of the Beljanskis, because they were very, famous and well-known doctors.
Well, thank you very much, first and for all, for having me, and it's really a pleasure. And to also to speak to Canada. I mean, I'm in New York, and I don't have very often this opportunity of doing so. So thank you.
Good, you're very welcome.
And yes, I grew up not seeing a lot of my parents. I mean, I think it happens to a lot of children. But really, that was for a good cause. But as a little girl, I could not, of course, understand the importance of my parents' work. All I felt is that they were never here for me. So I was a little bit resentful for their absence. And I felt like abandoned, ununderstood, and so on. But once I was able to, growing up, to understand the importance of what they were doing, I really understood that there was something so much bigger than my small little self, and that I started to, as I understood, to respect and appreciate what my parents were doing. I did so because I got confronted at a very early age, in fact, with what my parents were working with, if I may say so, because I was seeing people coming in, they have been diagnosed very often with cancer, they looked sick, they looked desperate, they were crying, then they were coming back with flowers, chocolates. Love the chocolates.
Wine.
My flowers were for my mother, and the chocolates were for my brother and me. And I started like that to see really that we were making a difference in lives of so many people.
Yeah.
It's just something I could not ignore.
Right. And so what inspired you to start telling the story about your father?
First, it was the unfairness of what happened in France. When I saw that the French government was trying to suppress this information, I felt this belongs to mankind. I cannot allow barbarians to destroy something that I don't even understand the beginning of what it is about. I've experienced that it can make a difference, that it can help people. This should be nurtured, not destroyed. And that's where I decided to stand up for what I knew, what I had seen.
And you really stood up. I mean, you took France to the European Court of Human Rights because of what they did to your father. So let's back up a little bit and explain what happened and how the government of France actually treated your father.
Well, France to the French government to the European Court of Human Rights actually was the easy part, because as I was a lawyer, so it was somewhat in my LA. Everything else was the unexpected. And what was unexpected first, I mean, is what they did to my father, to my family. On October 9, 1996, the French army came at my father's laboratory with machine guns, dogs, helicopters. There was a battalion, a SWAT team that came really to arrest this old man at the laboratory. He was, very early in the morning, was by himself. There was absolutely no gang to arrest, but the deployment of force, like there was sending the army, literally not the police, was absolutely ridiculous for the simple arrest of an old scientist who never tried to evade, to resist, to whatever. And what started the entire thing was, in fact, that when François Mitterrand, the former French president, was diagnosed with advanced prostate cancer, it was the official report was that Mitterrand would not be able to finish his second term, which was 7 years at the time in France, and that the country should prepare for early elections. But what happened is that he had a mistress who knew about a doctor who was familiar with my father's products. And at a point, this lady said, you have to meet this doctor and get the Beljanski products, and that may make a difference with your treatment. But don't give up. Maybe you will be able to finish your second term. So at the urge of his mistress, Mitterrand decided to visit this doctor and take my father's products. And against all odds, he got better and better, and finally was able to finish his second term and even survive a few months after that. But exactly 9 months after Mitterrand finally passed away, they sent the army to arrest my father. They just could not stand the idea that natural medicine could do better than what had been prognosed with the official treatment. They just wanted to have that disappear. So the first thing I did when I learned, I was working in a law firm in New York. The first thing I did when I learned that both my father and my mother had been arrested was, to take care of their legal defense. And when I had access to the legal file, I discovered there was an order to destroy every evidence about this scientific advance. Every shred of evidence, every testimonial. It was, and as a lawyer, I was absolutely shocked, because the legal system is supposed to keep, take care of the evidence and protect them for trial, not destroying them so they are not available the day of the trial. Exactly. But in the case of my father, they never granted him a day for trial. He passed away finally 2 years later, still not having a day for trial.
Well, the fact that he passed away was so sad because of the way that he passed away and what was done to him. Can you tell our audience what actually happened?
My mother and I, we strongly do believe that the day they arrested him, they also radiated him, because he got extremely sick very soon after with acute myeloid leukemia, which is supposed to take a while to evolve. You don't get acute myeloid leukemia within 2 months after being, flourishing and good health. My father was a very healthy, strong man, at 74. And I mean, and finally, when he passed away, we learned that, I mean, his skin, the skin on his back was burned, which is not a symptom of acute myeloid leukemia, but is a symptom of radiation.
Incredible, incredible. It just shows you to the extent of how big pharma and governments will go to suppress evidence-based natural medicine that we know will help people at a lower cost and get much, much better results. So I'm so sad for you and your family and how that happened. And the tragedy is he couldn't even have access to his own remedies.
No, because they had suppressed everything in France. So that's why, I felt the obligation to do even more. First, to manufacture the products for him. And then, once they were available, to share that with everybody who were interested into the products. But, it is the saddest thing that happened to my father. But if he had died of, let's say, cardiac arrest or something, I would not have had this urge to feel kind of obligated to carry on with his legacy. But it is the unfairness. And as a scientist, even more important than his whole life was the scientific legacy that he was leaving. He spent his life working on the lab. The idea that everything would be destroyed was actually a heartbreak for him. So I was able to promise him on his deathbed that I would carry on with the scientific research, because that was the most important to him. So what I did here in New York is to create a non-for-profit organization, the Beljanski Foundation, and to continue with the research. I wanted to confirm that his approach to cancer was right, because as long as it has not been confirmed by third-party prestigious universities, you can always, poo-poo the science and say, yeah, it has not been, duplicated, replicated, proven, established. But that's why I really, really wanted to, once I had access to those molecules, confirm that they were working. So we worked, very methodologic approach.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to first work on precancerous cells, on cancerous cells, on advanced cancerous cells, and now we are working on cancer stem cells.
Excellent, excellent. So what were some of the things that your father uncovered about natural medicine and cancer? There were so many, but what were a couple of highlights there?
So one of the main things, very early on he discovered was the difference between healthy cell and cancer cell at the level of the DNA. The hallmark of cancer cells is that it's kind of destabilization of the DNA. And when the two strands of the DNA are open, they are widely available to duplication hormones, and that's why they replicate much faster than healthy cells. So he was able to find natural compounds that are able to recognize those cells whose DNA has been destabilized and block the duplication selectively of those cells. And because it works at the level of the DNA, it's not gender or organ specific. So that's why I saw all those people coming, men and women, and breast cancer, like prostate cancer, like brain cancer, lung cancer. All those people, were doing better with the products. So that was approved, but I wanted to replicate that. I wanted to have publications, not just, my childhood memories, because that's of no validity to anybody. So that's why we worked at Columbia University on prostate cancer, and at Kansas University Medical Center, with the same compounds on ovarian and pancreatic cancer. And we have now the publications showing in vitro and in vivo it's working very well.
Amazing.
Same thing. I mean, and when I say very well, we are speaking of 80% of reduction of the tumor, for example.
That's wonderful.
Without toxicity. Because it is selective to cancer cells.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have a cancer cells, well, you are going to eliminate the product within hours.
That's amazing. Amazing.
And what we were also able to confirm was there was a nice synergy of action with most chemotherapies. So we have done docetaxel at Columbia University, which is commonly used for prostate cancer.
Mm-hmm.
We have done gemcitabine and carboplatin. So it works by itself, and it works very nicely also in synergy with chemotherapy, which is very important.
Absolutely.
Because patients, I mean, they are when they have their diagnosis, they are in a very stressful situation, and they don't want to have to choose between
mm-hmm.
the and between, their doctor and so on. What they want is to very often just take it all and to survive as well as they can the ordeal of the treatment.
Yes, because when there's a diagnosis, there's a lot of fear, and it's difficult for them to make a decision. And some people have so much faith and trust in their traditional doctors. They want to go traditional route, which is fine. But if they know that they can add nutrients like this one here, Oncobel Pro, and then there's the Immunobel Pro,
yes,
which helps to support, the immune system and destroys and targets the cancer cells. And you mentioned even the stem cells. So tell us a little bit about a couple of the ingredients in the products. And I know you had an interesting story and journey of how you had to go to South America and get on these little boats and walk in the jungle. And you went through a long story to get these products.
Indeed, unfortunately for me, I mean, the ingredients that my father discovered was those anti-cancer properties are, I mean, especially one of them, the paupera, is very difficult to source. And that's why also it's never going to be a large production, go coast to coast, and it's going to always to remain something very special, which is going to be distributed only in small quantities. And the price also will always be expensive because small batches, a lot of research, a lot of quality control at every turn of the formulation. It means, it has to come with a cost, unfortunately. But the research shows that really those compounds, the pauperera and the revolfia, both have anti-cancer properties, a very large spectrum of anti-cancer properties, and also that they are very well tolerated. In the Oncobel, there is also a special extract of golden ginkgo biloba, which my father studied and is able to help with the fibrosis, to fight the fibrosis of the tissues and help repair the tissues after surgery. So that's a very ideal combination, for example, when you have breast cancer and radiotherapy, because the pauperera and the revolfia vomitoria will have anti-cancer activity, while the ginkgo will help fight fibrosis that may induce by radiation. On the other hand, the Immunobel contains RNA fragments, which are, my father created those RNA fragments. It's RNA fragments from E. coli K12, which is known to be non-pathogenic and non-mutagenic, very safe bacteria, and then it is processed in order to remove any proteins, only keep the RNA, which is chopped in a very specific manner. And those RNA, specific little pieces of RNA, are able to prime the DNA of the bone marrow. They are very, very specific. Prime the DNA of the bone marrow to help the bone marrow to create white blood cells and platelets. And we had a clinical trial at Cancer Treatment Centers of America with those RNA fragments. And it was a clinical trial was on a population who had different kinds of cancer, were already very beaten up. They were all at the verge of thrombocytopenia, which is a loss of platelets.
Mm-hmm. As a result of the traditional treatments.
Yes, of chemotherapies. Very often side effects is a loss of platelets, which is people can die of thrombocytopenia because they bleed internally. Mm-hmm. And if there is nothing to stop the bleeding, no platelets to stop the bleeding, then they can die of hemorrhage. So we had this clinical trial, and nobody who was enrolled into the clinical trial, nobody had a loss of platelet that induced thrombocytopenia. Nobody had to stop their chemotherapy treatments. So the oncologist was very, very happy. And once they stopped taking the RNA fragments, we could see that their bone marrow had actually been protected.
Incredible.
So they were doing, as well at the end of the treatment as they were at the beginning. And there had been no damage during the chemotherapy because they'd been properly protected.
That's unheard of.
It is unheard of. There is nothing like that. Companies are offering products like Neupogen or Neulasta, but they are about white blood cells. They are not so much about platelets.
Very, very interesting. So will the Cancer Center start adapting that as part of their protocol, or was that just a trial?
Unfortunately, even for Cancer Treatment Centers of America, it's very difficult for them to adapt things which are not really mainstream. Of course, they are, adopting some supplements which are pretty mainstream, vitamin C and so on, but
right.
It's slightly different.
Yeah.
It is still very difficult.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's not there yet. But, it's all about education, and that's what your foundation does, is it helps to educate and put the word out. Your book, I've shared your book with our audience, and definitely encourage them to read it and encourage them to use the products, and especially if they test out positively on the RGCC test. Now, kind of a little aside that I've really enjoyed is the fact that you also created some amazing onco-teas that have specific properties to help support the immune system. And can you tell us a little bit about that? Those teas?
So my father was invited to go to China to do some research. And when he came back from China, they offered him a big box of samples of tea. And green tea was already known at the time to have antioxidant properties, but it had never been tested for anti-cancer properties. So that's why my father was very, very eager to do that. And that's once, back at his laboratory at the Pasteur Institute in Paris, the first thing he did was to test for anti-cancer properties. And he filed, but he was so busy with other things, he just filed the paper, and it stayed for years in the file cabinet until the French army came to destroy everything, and the papers were thrown away everywhere. And this piece of paper was, on the floor. So somebody picked it up and send it to me in New York, saying, hey, you might be interested in having a look at that. And so I received this piece of paper. I immediately recognized my father's handwriting, and it's a list of teas. And next to 4 of them, it's written, very, very anti-C. And that's it.
Huh.
So I wanted to kind of double test if my father was right. So we sent, I sourced organic sources of this tea and made a little mix. And I sent it to Kansas University Medical Center, which had already done the research in the past about prostate and ovarian cancer with paupera and revolvia. I said, this is different. This is a new extract. You have never tested this one. I would like to see at this time on breast cancer if it's going to work. And it's a tea. I told them it's a tea. I would like you to compare with Lipton, Bigelow, and I give you them another one. So they said, okay. So we all green teas. So we received the results, and turns out that the tea selected by my father are indeed able to destroy breast cancer cells, even metastatic.
Wow.
And the 3 other teas were not, there are some little effect, but nothing to compare with my father's selection. So daddy was right. And I made this tea available for everybody, because like that everybody can benefit from drinking this tea. And what I want to do now with the foundation is to see if, just like paupera or the revolvia, if this tea is going to have a large spectrum of activity, or if we were just lucky with breast. So that's the next alley of research.
The next research trial. So yeah, very interesting. And not only are they effective, but they taste really good. The flavors are just beautiful. And so I've really enjoyed them.
Actually, the little secret is when that tasted without any flavoring, it was not that good. I said, this is not going to sell.
Okay.
So we decided to add some mango peach, because it also has antioxidant properties.
Right.
Another one, we added some ginger to help fight inflammation, and then in another one, some tulsi and lemon.
Lemon
also
essence.
has some vitamin C. So we added some flavor and also some additional benefits to the teas by doing that and making more appealing.
Yeah, well, they're delicious. I drink them just about every day, so definitely recommend them. So, well, Sylvie, do you have any parting words for our audience? Most of our audience have been diagnosed with breast cancer. They're on a healing journey, or they've conquered and they're better. What parting words of encouragement would you give women who are faced with a cancer diagnosis?
I consider that the Beljanski products bring support at the cellular level. And this is most important when you have a diagnosis, because this support is going to give you time. But the cellular level is not everything. We are not just cells. We are living, complex human beings, and there is a lot of other levels to be reached and treated and addressed. And if we do not do that, at some point, the cancer will come back. If you do not address the very cause that made you sick at the very first place, the same cause is going to create the same problems again and again. So it is very, important to understand what the Beljanski products can bring to you, but also that not rely just, as you know, little capsules, believing the little capsules are going to do it all. You have to do your homework. You have to detox your home, your lifestyle, your emotions. You have to eat properly. You have to sleep. You have to exercise. You have to put yourself in, you have to meditate. You have to put yourself into the good hands of a good doctor, of a good coach.
That is so true. And that's what our whole system is about. The 7 essential system covers each of those levels. And, you know, you can cut out the tumor or burn it out or, you know, chemo it out. But if you don't change your lifestyle and what allowed the cancer to develop in the first place, there'll be recurrence. So
exactly. And that's why I really appreciate everything you are doing.
well, thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you, Sylvie. This was so encouraging, and I so appreciate your work. If you haven't read this book yet, Winning the War on Cancer, it's such a good read. It's an emotional story. It's encouraging. It really peels back the layers about what's happening with the governments and how they're trying to suppress you know, so many great things that could help countless number of people. So thank you for everything that you're doing, and thank you for your time today.
Thank you very much.